Good morning, afternoon, or evening, squirrels. Welcome back to AVHD. I am AV, and today we are talking about a topic that I'd really rather avoid because it's messy and it's real. And we're calling this episode "Yelling Towards, Not At." What happens when your big feelings crash and clash with our closest relationships? You know those moments when your emotions are big. We call them big feelings in my house. When you're feeling big feelings and you just need to yell, but it's not about the person in front of you. You're not mad at the person who you're talking to. You're just having big feelings in general. So yeah, that's what we're unpacking today. And let's just dive right in. Because for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you probably are coming up with 100 different examples. For me, when people are just meeting me, like when my team first met me and were getting to know me, they really thought that I was like a rageaholic. They thought that I had some serious anger issues because I was constantly raising my voice and raising my tone, although never at the person directly in front of me. So like, what the hell is happening there? In my family, we call it yelling towards, not yelling at. And that's, like I said, like when you have to yell, because your feelings are big, but you're not angry at the person that you're yelling in the direction of. You are just letting off some steam, like releasing some of those big emotions. So let's break it down. What is actually going on when your feelings kind of spill out in front of somebody, especially if it's someone you care about, right? Because not only can it feel really hard to manage, but it can really affect our relationships negatively at the time and down the line. So yelling towards versus yelling at. Yelling at, if I'm yelling at you, I'm directing blame at you. I'm angry with you. There's something that is connecting between me yelling at you and something that you did. That's yelling at you. And people have yelled at us, our whole lives. We yell at people all the time. Yelling towards someone is like emotional venting. It's not necessarily about the person that you're talking to. It doesn't have anything to do with anything that they've done. It doesn't even necessarily have to do with like what's going on right now in front of you. It doesn't have to do with the present necessarily. It's just releasing emotions like a pressure cooker, right? You're just letting out a little bit of steam so that you can keep it pushing. So why does ADHD play a role in these things? And where does ADHD play a role in these kinds of moments? Well, let's review. What do we already know about ourselves? We have very rapid emotional responses. We are kind of dysregulated emotionally. We feel things pretty big. We struggle with managing and naming feelings in real time. So if I'm feeling something, what is the root of this thing that I'm feeling? That's a very difficult process for a lot of people, and especially for us with ADHD. If you throw RSD in with the mix, then it's a whole other story, honestly. And then we generally are, like I said, we're very impulsive. So we have this need and desire or this urge to release our emotions immediately instead of processing them. We don't want these things to sit with us. We don't want them to kind of fester in our brain, in our mind, in our heart. So we want to just get rid of the emotion by expressing it in whatever way. And that way we can move on. But what's the problem with that? Well, first of all, a lot of neurotypicals don't process in the same way. A lot of people don't process in the same way. And your emotional dysregulation can really affect your relationships in a big way. Big emotions don't just stay inside of us. If we don't let them out and we don't find a way to process or to work through these emotions, they leak out and they like spill and cause damage that we didn't really intend. So let's take a look at what that looks like in real life. When you or I, as a person with ADHD, are feeling dysregulated, right? Like you're just at the end of your rope, you don't have any more spoons left for the day. You literally just don't have the capacity to deal with any more things. And then somebody puts just one more thing on your plate and you lose it. You have a total emotional outburst. You rip into the person. You rip into your husband. You rip into your wife. Can't you see that I'm busy right now? Can't you see that I'm frustrated? I can't deal with this. Blah, blah, blah. The impact of that emotional outburst is huge on your relationships because there is no circumstance in which it's appropriate or reasonable to yell at someone. It leads to miscommunication, hurt feelings, saying things that you don't mean, polarization of speech. So saying things like, you always do this or you never do that. You leave the rational, logical part of your brain behind when you're in this very emotional space and this emotional type of outburst. The problem is you're not the only person in this communication. You're not the only one who has feelings here. So you might be feeling really big feelings. You might have a very strong need to express those feelings, but you're not the only one in the dialogue. So even if you're not yelling at someone, you're yelling towards them because you're feeling emotionally dysregulated. To them, it can feel like the same thing unless you have pre-established guidelines about what is going on here. So in my family, what that looks like is I will clarify, and I have always clarified both to my kids and to my husband, why am I yelling? Like, oh, I'm just yelling because I need to yell right now is a very different feeling in the household than I'm yelling at you because you did something wrong. And now my kids will even ask, they'll say, are you yelling at dad or are you yelling towards him? Because those mean two very different things. The only reason, however, that they mean different things is because I have taken the time and the years to get to this point, to express my needs to the people that are around me and to develop safe and secure connections where I'm able to express myself in those ways without destroying the nature of our connection. There is unlimited importance to repairing the connection after you've yelled at somebody or yelled towards somebody. Any time someone else has perceived that you raised your tone at them and their feelings got hurt, it's your responsibility as the person who raised your tone to repair the connection, to repair the relationship, to explain yourself to the best of your ability, and then hopefully set some guidelines in the future for how to navigate this thing without anybody else's feelings getting hurt. So, like I said, I have certain people who I'm allowed to yell towards and certain people that I'm not. And I just need to know who is who so that I'm not accidentally trampling any relationships that I've worked so hard to build and that are so important to me. Why is it so freaking hard, though? What makes emotional regulation so hard with ADHD? It's not fair. And if you're wondering why this is harder for you than it is for others, it's not in your head. It's in your brain. ADHD has a very direct connection to emotional dysregulation. We can get into the brain chemistry another time of what is going on in the ADHD brain. But essentially, when you are emotionally dysregulated, the best and quickest way out of that emotional dysregulation is to tap into your executive function and into the logic part of your brain, which ADHDers don't have a very easy time with. What we do experience a lot is quick shifts in our emotions. I was calm and now I'm overwhelmed and now maybe I'm calm again. Those shifts are very quick and you can't always see them coming. When you have ADHD, we feel emotions very big, right? We have very, very big feelings most of the time. We feel our feelings very intensely, but we're not very good at knowing how to regulate them or how to process them. And the ADHD brain relies on external cues and external triggers to self-regulate. So if you are alone in a feeling and you found yourself shifting from calm to overwhelmed, you don't have any way to process these big feelings and you don't have anyone around you to help you out, that's really, really, really tricky. And I just want to pause here for a little bit and talk about what it feels like to be somebody with such big feelings. So this morning is a perfect example. I was getting my daughter ready for school. Actually, I wasn't supposed to be getting ready for school. I was supposed to be sleeping in, but I was woken up because there was a lot of screaming in my house. Just a lot of very distressed yelling happening. And my 6-year-old did not want to go to school. Why didn't she want to go to school? Because she got a haircut over the long weekend and her friends and her had a Zoom call the day prior. And even though she mentioned her haircut, nobody said anything about it. So that must mean that everybody doesn't care about her and nobody likes her haircut and it's going to be a terrible day and she just doesn't want to go and it's going to be horrible. It's going to be awful. The night before, and even this morning, she was fine. She shifted very quickly from calm into overwhelmed. And then she just didn't have a way to process these really big feelings. And honestly, like the things that her brain was telling her and the feelings that she was feeling weren't even based in reality. They were very true for her inside her own brain, but they had nothing to do with what was really going on in the world around her. Her hair looks adorable. Everyone's going to love it. When people are on a Zoom call and they're all yelling at the same time, they're probably talking over each other. No one can really hear anything and it's all just chaos. That doesn't have anything to do with you. But as a person with ADHD, we have a tendency to take things a little bit personally. So what did we do to be able to get ourselves to school? The first thing I did was deep pressure. I grabbed her into a very big, tight squeeze, and we talked through the whole thing. We processed the entire thing, every single thought that her brain was telling her, and what was true about it and what was not true about it. And at the end of all of that, she still was not ready to go to school. But she got on the bus eventually, or she was placed on the bus, rather. And by the time she got to school, she was fine. She just needed that time. She needed that switch. She needed the other people around her who were fine to help regulate her. And that's the interesting thing about a person with ADHD is that even if you're dysregulated, if you put yourself in a place of other people who are more regulated, it'll be easier for you to handle your big emotions. Because again, our brain needs external triggers and external cues to help us self-regulate. That's an example of my 6-year-old. So she's a brand new person feeling all of these feelings for the first time, pretty much. What about you as an adult? And the way that you've learned to deal with your overstimulation and the way that your unresolved issues show up when you're trying to regulate now. So you've not only had this very unique and special brain that has its own unique and special challenges, but you've also had an entire life probably of people telling you that the way you regulate or the way you do things or what you do is not the right way, is not the way that it should be, is getting a lot of criticism for what you're doing and how you're doing it. Why are you yelling? Why are you running around in circles? What's the matter with you? Can't you be more like so-and-so? All of those beautiful, beautiful and wonderful things that we've heard our entire lives. All of that kind of plays a role in your big emotions because I'm feeling this big thing. I'm very uncomfortable in feeling this big thing. I'm overstimulated and I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to get myself out of this particular situation. And every time in the past that I've tried to get myself out of this situation, I've gotten in some kind of trouble, right? Like my friends got mad at me, or my teacher yelled at me, or my boss yelled at me, or somebody reacted to my big feelings in a negative way because they didn't recognize them for what they were, just simply big feelings. Those types of big feelings are usually interpreted negatively, and then we get negative feedback back from our environment. So what do we do about it? How do we handle these moments without causing damage? And again, we are adults now. So what I did for my daughter is the same thing that we do for ourselves. What was the first thing I did? I sat down with her on the floor and I took her on my lap and I gave her a big hug with deep pressure. We took a pause. Pause before reacting. Take a second. Even if it feels impossible, I guarantee you there is nothing that is happening in this moment that is more important than you regulating yourself. So take a second to just pause and breathe. Once you've created that space, name the emotion. What am I feeling right now? Am I angry? Am I frustrated? Probably not. You're probably scared, overwhelmed, nervous, anxious, uncomfortable. You're probably something else that is expressing itself as anger. So what am I feeling right now? What is the name of this specific emotion that I'm feeling? By naming it and by identifying it, we make it less scary, right? And then we remove ourselves. And we do that in two separate ways. Remove yourself physically if necessary, and remove yourself emotionally if you can. Removing yourself physically is, while it is interpreted as a very dramatic thing, like, oh, I'm going to walk away. It doesn't have to be that way. Taking time for yourself to regulate is important if you know that you're not going to show up in the best way you can. And what I mean by that is, if you know you're going to lose your shit, then take a step away. Because once you lose your shit, you can't undo that moment. It happened, right? You lost your shit. Someone else had to witness it. Someone else was a part of that. And that's not their problem. It's not their fault. And it's not something that we should make their problem or be comfortable in any way making someone else's problem. So sometimes stepping away is the most loving thing that you can do in that moment. A couple of parameters. How do we step away? When we are stepping away physically from a conflict or from a discussion and you need to take that space, it is really important to communicate what you are doing. So that might look something like this. You are about to freak the fuck out and lose your shit. Excuse me, we're cuss heavy this episode. You are about to have a little distressed moment. Okay? You feel it. It's bubbling up. It's boiling. It's there. It's simmering. You feel the steam building. And you need to step away. Here's what we do. First, we say to the person across from us, I am feeling very big feelings right now, or whatever your version of that is, okay? I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now. I need to pause to take some time for myself and figure out what's going on. You create space and you communicate the need for space. The second thing you do is you validate the person that's in front of you. There's nothing that you're doing right now that is causing me to feel this way, which makes me think that my reaction is not appropriate. So I'm going to take some time to figure out what that is. And then the third thing that you're going to do, if this is a relationship that's important to you, and this is somebody that you love, is you're going to let them know how much time you need. Okay? Hey, I'm going to go and step away for a second. I just need to take a walk around the block to clear my head. I'm feeling really big emotions right now. And that makes me think that what I'm reacting to is something that's more in me than something that's happening between us. So like I said, I'm going to go take a walk around the block. I'll probably be back in around 10 to 15 minutes. Or I am really just so overwhelmed right now. I need to go out and figure out what's going on. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but it's probably going to be a few hours. When I have a better idea of how long it will be, I will text you and let you know. Okay? Or, hey, I really don't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with whatever's happening right now. Can we put a pin in this and revisit it next week? Whatever it is, whatever your need for space is, communicate that need and stick to it. It's really important to communicate to the other person that what you're dealing with is you dealing with your own situation and how much time you're going to need to deal with it. Otherwise, they're left with so many questions and so much uncertainty. They don't know what is happening within you because you didn't communicate it, because you don't know what's happening inside of you right now. Just do your best in that moment to give the other person across from you as much information as possible. When you're communicating with somebody and you're feeling really overwhelmed, you need to remember to emphasize communication and expression of your feelings without blame. I'm not angry at you. I'm just feeling overwhelmed right now. And how often is that true, right? Like, we express something as if we're angry with someone, but we're not really truly angry with them. We're just overwhelmed by the circumstance. And then things boil up and they get big and it's just a whole big mess. I'm not angry with you. I'm feeling insert emotion here. Set boundaries for yourself and allow the other person to set boundaries for themselves. Okay? This conversation is escalating. It's okay for us to pause and come back to it. Set those boundaries for yourself so that things don't turn into something that they're not. You don't want your conversation to spiral out of control and become a monster that it really isn't. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. If the conversation is escalating, let's just pause for a moment and come back to it. And then when you're ready to have the conversation about whatever it is that you're feeling, help your loved one out with a little bit of pre-framing. Like, let them know, hey, I'm about to talk to you about some stuff that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. Is this a safe space for me to talk about my feelings, even if they're messy or uncomfortable? Pre-frame the conversations so that they know what type of conversation you're looking to have. It's not fair to expect somebody with a slower processing speed for a brain to immediately jump and transition at our pace into whatever it is that we're talking about at the moment. You jumped 1,000,000 miles an hour. Maybe you left and came back, and now you guys are talking about having dinner, and all of a sudden you're ready to discuss what happened before. Give your person a little bit of time and grace to be able to pivot what's going on in their mind so that they can hear this next phase of the conversation. All of that is like nice, like all well and good. If I was able to control myself before the outburst happened. What happens if you already yelled? You already let those emotions get the best of you. This is a good news, bad news situation. So the good news is everything can be fixed. The bad news is it requires not only a lot of work from you, but a lot of awareness of what is going on. So again, here my kids are the absolute best example. When I am feeling overwhelmed, I yell at my kids. And that's not fair because it has nothing to do with what's going on with them at the time. So if I'm feeling overstimulated and they come and they ask me a simple question and I'm like, oh, why are you bothering me right now? They didn't do anything. It has nothing to do with their question. I'm simply feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated. So what do you do after that? I yelled at my kid. Now what do I do? Step number 1 is own your freaking behavior. without excuses. What that looks like is, I yelled at you before. That person already knows that you yelled at them. So you might be asking yourself, why do I need to tell them something I already know? Well, because words are our most reliable way of communicating with each other. So they know that you yelled at them, but they don't know that you yelled at them. Okay? And I'm going to tell you something that's a little hard to hear for a second. You might be that person who yells at everybody, and you might not know it. Okay? And I know that that is a hard truth. But if you have ADHD, you're probably emotionally dysregulated. If you're emotionally dysregulated, you probably yell a lot. And it's probably become a part of your communication pattern to the point that you might not realize how often you communicate in this particular way. So the person sitting across from you may not know that you yelled at them, because it might be part of their normal with you. And I think that we can all agree that that is not a fair normal. That's not the types of relationships that we want to have with people, where they're unsure if you're angry, where they're unsure of how to interact with you so that they don't set you off. Own your own behavior without making excuses. I yelled at you. Step number 2 is validate the other person's feelings. It must have been really upsetting when I yelled. I must have really hurt your feelings. I know it must have been really hurtful when I did that. Those 2 steps are absolutely critical. If you leap forward into problem solving without first acknowledging your behavior and validating the other person's feelings, they will not listen to your problem solving. They will not listen to your solution. And as a sidebar, men of the world, listen to me. Any man within the sound of my voice who has a female partner, okay? Listen, own your behavior without excuses, validate the other person's feelings. What that might look like is, I didn't show up for you when you wanted me to show up for you. That must have felt disappointing and alone. Now, and again, this is for the men of the world, now that I, as your partner, know that you know what you did and you know how it made me feel, I'm willing to listen to absolutely anything. And our kids are the same way. Everyone's the same way. We don't listen until we feel heard. So you make the other person feel heard if you want them to listen. That's not even about being a good person. That's just about getting what you want at the end of the day. If you want someone to listen to you, make sure that you hear and validate them first. Okay? So, I yelled at you before. That must have been really hurtful and upsetting when I did that. And then step number 3 is explain what you're working on and ask for grace. Okay? Here's what this does not sound like. It does not sound like, I'm working on it, give me some grace. It sounds like this. I yelled at you before. That must have been really hurtful. I was feeling overwhelmed and dysregulated, and I yelled at you even though it had nothing to do with you. I am working on that so that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can take a deep breath and calm myself down so that you don't have to be responsible or a victim of my feelings. I'm really sorry that this happened, and I'm asking for your grace while I keep working on it. If you're willing, I would love it if you could point out for me when this happens again so that I can work on it better. See how specific that was and how much accountability there was in that? That accountability and willingness to embrace mistakes and real, true self-reflection and introspection are critical pieces to building strong relationships. And that consistent effort is super important. So what that means is that every time you yell at someone, you need to go through the same process. And if it's not changing in the way that you said it was going to change, because you just said, I'm going to work harder to take a deep breath before I respond so that I don't yell at you in the future. So if in the future you're still apologizing for yelling at them, then you didn't do a very good job of taking a deep breath. Maybe you need an additional tool or an additional resource. And it is your responsibility as the person who is feeling dysregulated to go and seek that resource or that help so that the people around you don't have to suffer. That effort is consistent and it's constant because your relationships are not built in a day and they're not broken in a day either, but they can be much more easily broken in a day than they can be fixed. As Dr. Phil says, it takes 1,000 attaboys to undo one, you're not good enough. And that's so true because we remember the negative so much more strongly and so much more sharply than we remember the positive things in our life. It takes 1,000 positive impacts to make up for yelling at somebody one time. Big emotions don't make you a bad person. They make you a person with big emotions. We don't want to shut down these feelings. We want to manage them in a way that strengthens our relationships. Okay, look at Elsa in Frozen. What happened to Elsa when she tried to conceal, don't feel? When she tried to conceal, don't feel, don't let it show, her ice powers burst forward and destroyed the whole city and froze everything, and it was a disaster. Once she learned to embrace her strength, embrace her powers, and embrace the things that made her a little bit scary, she was able to learn how to work with them, how to manipulate them to her benefit. So the goal, again, is not to shut your feelings down. It's to manage your big emotions so that you strengthen your relationships. And the key to that is by the pause at the beginning. Taking the time and the space to regulate yourself in your head, in your mind, and in your spirit, so that when you're responding to somebody, you're doing so from a regulated place. So, I feel like I've been talking to myself this episode. And I kind of hate episodes like that where it feels like, oh man, I have a real lesson to learn. But it's true. This has been a struggle for my life always, forever and ever and ever. And I've gotten really good at it. But sometimes I'm not so good at it. And sometimes I yell at people. And I really, really hate that. So our key takeaways is practice makes progress. Okay. We have to learn how to recognize our own emotional dysregulation. When it happens, take a moment, notice what it feels like. Classify it for yourself. Hey, this is emotional dysregulation. I'm emotionally dysregulated right now. What does it feel like? What's happening in your body? Get to know that feeling. And then practice pausing, naming the feeling, creating space for yourself, listening, validating, and apologizing. Taking accountability and working better for next time. And if I may, my strongest recommendation, because again, as ADHDers, we really do well when we have an external regulator, find the people in your life who you can yell towards, not yell at. Hey, do you have some time for me to yell towards you right now? I just have some things to yell about, and I don't want you to take it personally. Is that okay? Usually they'll say yes. So in this week, when your emotions feel too big, take a step back, take a breath, and decide how you want to respond. Because you owe yourself how do I want to put this? You owe yourself the effort that it takes for you to be a better person. And it's true that your particular brain chemistry has thrown you some wild cards and has set you up for some challenges in this life. But you owe it to yourself not to accept those things as fact. You can change anything about yourself if you want to. Please, please, please share your stories with us. I want to hear about all of the times when you freaked out. I want to hear about when you tried to repair your relationships and it worked. I want to hear about when you tried to repair your relationships and it didn't work. You can find us anywhere where podcasts can be found at AVHD. Follow us on Facebook at our Facebook group, Trust Yourself, Trust the Process, where we talk about just that, walking along our path and our process one day at a time and celebrating milestones and small successes as we go. And remember, you are worth the time that it takes to put effort in yourself. You really are worth it. And when you learn to harness all of these really powerful energies and all of these really big feelings and this incredible passion, you're going to be completely and totally unstoppable. And I can't wait to see it. So until next week, squirrels, make some space, take a deep breath, take accountability. You got this.